Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our informational webinar on year 4 of the Community Accelerator Grant, a statewide grant program funded by Allen Family Philanthropies and intended to provide essential capital for Washington State's arts and cultural organizations. My name is Ellen Milligan, and I'm the Vice President of Grant Making at ArtsFund. For a visual description, I'm a white woman in my 30s with long dark hair, wearing a black cardigan and glasses, sitting in front of a blue virtual Community Accelerator Grant background. As we begin today's webinar, I would like to acknowledge that the City of Seattle, where ArtsFund is based, is on the occupied lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically the ancestral lands of the Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Muckleshoot, and Suquamish tribes, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I would also like to acknowledge that many with us today are on different territories, and we join you in honoring and recognizing those as well. To make today's event more accessible, we have a number of accessibility features. We're joined by 2 ASL interpreters, Joey and Samantha, who will be spotlit throughout the program. You can also enable automatically generated captions in 30+ languages. You can enable captions by clicking on the More button in the meeting control bar, then clicking Show Captions. To enable translated captions, you can click the small arrow to the right of the Closed Captions button to adjust your spoken language and caption language. Visual instructions will be presented on the next slide. You can click and drag the provided subtitles to move their position on the screen. You can use the More button to adjust your subtitle settings or to open the full transcript at any time. Please be aware that the subtitles will not be 100% accurate as they are automatically generated. On this slide, you will see visual instructions for enabling translated captions. Please reach out to Annika Bennett in the chat if you require assistance. For accessibility, each of our speakers will also visually describe themselves the first time they speak, like I did at the top of the program. And finally, today's session will be recorded and will be available on YouTube. In just a few moments, you'll be hearing from Michael Greer, ArtsFund's President and CEO, who will provide an overview of the Community Accelerator Grant program. Today's webinar is intended to provide clarity around the eligibility for the program and to offer insight into the application process. We will walk you through the application portal, and then we're going to hold a brief question and answer session at the end. Realistically, we aren't going to be able to get to all your questions this afternoon. So if you do have a question specific to your organization, we encourage you to reach out to our grant-making team at accelerator@artsfund.org via email. We have also put together a web page of frequently asked questions, which is available on our program website, artsfund.org/accelerator. We highly encourage all applicants to review the FAQ before submitting your applications. Before we move on, we'd love to collect some information about who's here today and where you're joining us from. We are about to launch a brief, completely anonymous demographic poll. While taking this poll is entirely optional, your information will help us get a sense of whether we're successfully reaching the populations this funding is intended to serve and where we need to do more outreach. We'll take about 45 seconds for you to complete that poll now. Thank you. And without further ado, here is Michael.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michael Greer. I am the president and CEO here at ArtsFund. I am a light-skinned black male with no hair, black chunky glasses, wearing a buttoned-up black polo and sitting in front of the same blue virtual background that says Community Accelerator Grant on it. At ArtsFund, our mission is to support the arts through leadership, advocacy, and grant making in order to build a more healthy, equitable, and creative Washington. ArtsFund is excited to once again be partnering with the Allen Family Philanthropies to distribute unrestricted funding to arts and cultural organizations across the entire state. Over the last 3 years, we've had the privilege of seeing these funds impact communities of all shapes and sizes in every county in Washington. They've bolstered arts education programs in rural areas where students may not otherwise have access to the arts. They've helped keep generators running and the lights on during winter storms at artist residencies. And you've used this support to host countless concerts, recitals, productions, and making your venues more accessible and paying your staff fairly for all the incredible work that they do. So when we're talking about unrestricted funding, what we're really talking about is trust. We know that you are the experts in what you do, and it is our goal to boost your ability to invest in your missions and serve your communities. So whether you're new to this specific grant program, or whether this is the fourth year that you've been joining us for this call, we're very happy to have you here. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Ellen, who will talk you through the eligibility parameters for this grant.
Thank you, Michael. Let's get into the details of this grant program. So the Community Accelerator Grant is intended for arts and cultural organizations in Washington state. We want to support a wide variety of groups, but we also want to make it as easy as possible for organizations to understand if this grant program is intended for them. In order to be eligible, groups must meet the following key requirements. First, your organization must be based in Washington. Your organization's primary mission must be to produce or support arts and cultural activities, and we'll talk more about what that means in just a moment. Your organization must have existed for 3 or more years. This means that it must have been founded on or before December 31st, 2022. And over your organization's 3 most recently completed fiscal years, it must have had an average annual operating budget between $25,000 and $1 million. We're asking you to calculate this number by adding together your total revenue from the last 3 fully completed fiscal years and dividing that number by 3. If you're applying with a fiscal sponsor, this budget requirement applies to your organization, not your fiscal sponsor. Finally, you must meet one of these 3 conditions. You must be a 501c3 public charity. You must be fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 public charity, or you must be a federally or state recognized tribal entity. As cultural heritage and artistic practices are embedded in the work and daily life of tribes, tribal entities will be considered eligible regardless of whether they have formal mission statements encompassing arts and cultural activities. Tribal entities focused on artistic and cultural activities, such as culture departments and tribal museums, are eligible to apply if they meet the budget requirements. Multiple entities affiliated with the same tribe may apply if each meets the eligibility criteria. Many of the eligibility questions we receive about this grant relate to our definition of arts and cultural organizations, so I'd like to take a few minutes to speak to that question. If your organization's primary mission is to produce or support arts and cultural activities, you are eligible for this grant. If your organization's primary mission is something like conducting historical research or providing social services or organizing a volunteer corps, and supporting arts and cultural activities is something that you do as well, that's of course enormously valuable work, but it puts you outside the funding scope for this program. If you're a cultural organization, in order to be eligible, your work must contain a significant artistic component. As an example, let's consider 2 hypothetical organizations. So the first is a history museum dedicated to preserving and uplifting the history of their region. They do this by archiving documents and photographs, interviewing long-term residents, and organizing exhibits of historical artifacts. This is a cultural heritage organization, but their work does not contain an artistic component, so they would not be eligible for this grant. The second is also a history-focused organization, but does its work by curating and displaying artwork made by area residents and producing a monthly podcast about local musical traditions. Because they have a significant artistic component to their work, this organization would be considered eligible. And as another example, we can look at 2 more hypothetical organizations. So the first uplifts Mexican American and Latinx culture by providing workshops, seminars, and presentations in schools about Latinx identity and history. There is no artistic component to their work, so they would not be eligible. The second organization also uplifts Mexican American and Latinx culture, but they do their work by participating in festivals and teaching and practicing traditional music and dance. This organization would be considered eligible. Current ArtsFund grantees are welcome to apply if they meet the requirements of this program, and organizations that have previously received Community Accelerator Grant funding are welcome to apply again, though neither are automatic guarantees of eligibility or funding in year 4. Likewise, if your organization was determined ineligible in the past, that does not mean you are automatically disqualified this year, though, as you will note, the eligibility parameters of this granting process are very similar to past cycles. In previous cycles, we have been able to fund every eligible applicant, and our hope and intention is to do the same in this round of Community Accelerator Grant funding. If you still have questions about whether your group is eligible, there are many ways to get more information displayed on this slide. You can ask broader questions here in the webinar using the Q&A feature, and we'll try to get to your questions in the second half of this session. You can review the FAQ page on our website at artsfund.org/accelerator. If you have specific questions related to your organization's eligibility or the application process, you can email us at accelerator@artsfund.org or call our accelerator-specific phone line at 206-788-3051 to speak with a member of the grant-making team or leave a voicemail. Starting on July 15th, so next week, the phone line will be staffed on Tuesdays from 10 to 1, Wednesdays from 2 to 5, and Fridays from 10 to 1. And now I'm going to pass things over to our grant operations coordinator, Celine Chen, who will be presenting our application and the application portal.
Thanks, Alan, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Celine Chen. I'm ArtsFund's Grant Operations Coordinator. I'm an Asian woman in my 30s with dark medium hair and wearing glasses. We're about to walk through the Community Accelerator Grant application submission portal. Before we get started, I want to know that what I'm sharing today is a preview. The application portal will not open until Wednesday, July 15th at noon Pacific time, and we will share the link on the ArtsFund's website around that time. You won't be able to create a profile or start an application until the portal opens. We've shared a PDF of the application on our website so you can preview questions in advance. We also have a list of frequently asked questions to guide you as you prepare your application. I'm now going to share my screen to show you what the application portal looks like, and it will take some time as I need to toggle between two screens. And one sec. Okay. Okay, this is the login page. If you have applied for a grant through ArtsFund before, you can use your existing credentials. As you can see, I have already got an account within the system. If you are a new user, you can use this page to make a new account and a new profile by signing up here. Now I'm logging into my account. And it will take some time. As you can see, this is the home page of the application with instructions and resources here. I will first fill out my new profile or edit my existing profile by clicking into it. The profile form will ask for just 3 pieces of information: your organization's name, your organization's employer identification number, which is EIN, and the date your organization was established. If your organization does not have an EIN, please enter NA. After you have created your profile, you can revisit it at any time. And to save your info, just click Save Changes. Then the system will automatically direct you back to the home page. Once you've created an account and a new profile, you can revisit the portal as many times as needed. You do not need to complete your application in one setting. Now I'm clicking Get Started to enter application process. You'll see a page that includes instructions on how to apply. Now we click on the eligibility and contact form. Please complete this form first. And your first step will be to complete the initial eligibility quiz, which will help you confirm whether you meet the minimum requirements before moving forwards. These questions align with the eligibility criteria Alan covered earlier. If you answer no to any of these questions, the following text will display. As thank you for your interest, your organization is not eligible for the Community Accelerator Grant at this time. If you see this message, please do not advance past this stage nor fill out any additional forms. And if you answer yes to all questions, you are eligible. You are eligible and ready to start your application. The remainder of this form will populate below. For the sake of time, I will not walk through each field on this application, but I want to note a few key points. First, some guidance for fiscally sponsored applicants. For the question, please select the statement that applies to your organization. You can select my organization is fiscally sponsored by another organization with 501c3 status. Then you'll be asked to share your fiscal sponsor's EIN in the fiscal sponsor section, and also upload a PDF of your signed sponsorship agreement in this section. You'll also need to enter your fiscal sponsor's information, including its name and contacts. You will also need to enter your own organization information, including contacts and address. So basically, general information is for your own organization with the sponsorship agreement, and everything with your physical sponsor is in this section. Another important aspect of this form is the focus area. This is important because it helps us understand how your organization fits into Washington's arts and culture sector. There are drop downs for you to select, and there are primary and secondary, if applicable, focus areas. Please know that there is an option for other in both focus area. If you feel your primary or secondary focus area is not covered by any of these options, but you do meet the requirements of being an arts and culture organization, you can select other and then excuse me, specify the area within 25 words and also provide context in the 100-word text box at the bottom. If you would like to share information about your organization's artistic work that may assist our review team in making an eligible determination, this text box is the place to do it. Again, this is fully optional. If you need more time to finish your application, you can click Save Draft to save your progress and then close to go back to the home page. And once you have finished this specific form, you may click Mark Complete at the bottom of the form. As I have not filled out the full form, I will just click Save Draft and then close to exit to the home page. Now we move forward to the next form, the financial form. Again, as a reminder, if you are not eligible, please do not move forward with any other forms other than the eligibility and contact form. And important things to note here for the financial form. As for your financial document, we are asking that you submit a 990 or 990 easy of 2024 or 2025. Please know that we cannot accept 990N, also known as the e-postcard. If that's what your organization files, we will need you to submit the financial document instead. Um, so they are, if you do not have a 990 or 990 easy, please instead upload financial documents of your FY24 or FY25, including an income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flow, if available. These documents should be actuals, not budgets. Please ensure your submission meets these minimum requirements. If your organization submits insufficient financial documentation, we may not be able to consider your application complete. If your organization has paid staff, we are asking you to enter your personnel expenses for FY 2023, 24, and 25. Personnel expenses are costs associated with payrolls, including salaries and wages. Stipends and contracted services do not count. So if your staff is entirely contracted or entirely volunteer, please enter 0. Know that personnel expenses should be included in your organization's total operating expenses. We are asking for this line item separately for research and advocacy purposes. It will not be scored. The last question on this form asks you to quantify how much you anticipate increasing your revenue from this grant, not including the amount of the grant award. A few examples of how you might do that will be using the grant as evidence of your organization's credibility in other grant applications, like asking for larger grants, asking for unrestricted grants, and diversifying your funding sources. We understand that your response will be an estimate and it will have no impact on your award. I'll close this form and go to the next form, which is the programs and demographic form that will show up now. There is one section for this form that I would like to take a moment to highlight here, which is the section on how the data is used in determining awards. The demographic data, as part of your Community Accelerator Grant application, will be revealed by ArtsFund staff. The data will then be anonymized across applicants and shared with our community advisory panel, a geographically and demographically diverse group of leaders assembled with the purpose of ensuring decision making is as close to communities as possible. If you choose to provide demographic data, it will be factored into your organization's award consideration. If you choose to answer demographic data questions with do not know, prefer not to answer, as shown here, you will not be penalized, but benefits of demographic representation will not be factored into your award consideration. As one more thing worth mentioning here is We recognize many organizations are run by contractors who are paid by who are paid by a stipend rather than salary. So if your organization is run by contractors, please complete the staff demographic sector on behalf of your contractors. If your organization is run entirely by volunteers, please complete the staff demographic section on behalf of only your core volunteers who hold meaningful levels of responsibility. I'll save and close this form and go back to the home page. Mhm. Our next form is the ACH form. One thing I want to point out is that if your organization is physically sponsored, we only need your physical sponsor's bank information, not your information. And as you can see, the first question you need to answer is whether your organization is physically sponsored or not. And if you are a 501c3 or tribal entity, please enter your own organization's ACH information and contacts. Now I will save this form and hit close to return to the home page. And once your application is complete, the button Submit in the upper right corner will turn green, this button, and you will have the option to submit anytime before the deadline. And if you want a copy of your application, can email us at accelerator@artsfunds.org for a PDF of your application. Please know that once you submit, you may no longer edit your application. And as a reminder, the deadline to apply is 5 p.m. on Friday, August 21st. This is the end of our walkthrough. Now I will pass it to Katie, our Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Communications, who will cover the next Q&A question.
Thank you, Celine. And thank you to everyone who's been submitting their questions through the Zoom Q&A feature throughout this webinar. My name is Katie Corella. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a middle-aged white woman with short, curly brown and gray hair, wearing a lilac striped button-up shirt, sitting in front of the blue Community Accelerator Grant background. Now we'd like to open it up for our Q&A. We will be prioritizing questions received in advance during registration, as well as those questions that are most broadly applicable. If we don't get to your question today, we encourage you to review the Community Accelerator Grant FAQs or to reach out to our team by emailing them at accelerator@artsfund.org. As mentioned here, we will be sharing a recording of this session as a resource for everyone. Michael and Ellen, will you please join me back on screen? All right, let's get started. First question, could you please summarize all changes to the eligibility parameters from last year to this year?
Yes, I can take this one. So in past cycles, this grant opportunity was open to mission-aligned organizations with operating budgets over $25,000. And as of 2026, the eligibility parameters have shifted to organizations with annual operating budgets between $25,000 and $1 million. So that does mean if your organization's operating budget is above $1 million, you are not eligible for this cycle. Additionally, in the past, applicants were asked to calculate their average annual operating budget using actuals for their two most recently completed fiscal years and their budget for their current fiscal year. This year, applicants are asked to calculate their average operating budgets using 3 years of actuals. So FY23, FY24, and FY25. This does mean that your organization must have completed at least 3 full fiscal years to be eligible.
Thanks, Ellen. What if my organization was established in or before 2022, but only became a 501c3 nonprofit more recently?
I can take this one as well, and I've seen several versions of this coming up in the Q&A tab. So want to be clear on this eligibility requirement as well. Applicants must have held their eligible status since 2022. So this means that fiscally sponsored projects must have held fiscal sponsorships since 2022 or before. And 501c3s must have been incorporated on or before this date or have been fiscally sponsored since at least 12/31/22 before attaining 501c3 status.
Thanks, Ellen. When will funding decisions be made?
I'll take this one too. Organizations will be notified by December 1st, and funds will be distributed by the end of December 2026.
Great. Something else that's come up in the chat quite a bit is, will I have to report that the funding was used in the way reported in the application? Will my organization be penalized if we used funding for something else?
All right, yeah, I'll finally jump in for this one. This is Michael, and no, there are no reporting requirements for this grant. These grants are completely unrestricted, and the recipients should use the grant dollars as they see fit. So the questions that we are asking you about how you anticipate using these funds are for research and advocacy purposes only.
Thanks, Michael. Next question is, my organization's operating budget was above $1 million in one fiscal year, but our 3-year average is below the $1 million threshold. Is this acceptable?
Yes. And the same goes if your organization's annual operating budget was below 25,000 in one fiscal year, but your 3-year average is at or above 25,000. We're looking at the average over 3 years.
Thanks, Ellen. If I applied for another grant from ArtsFund this year, such as the Creative Equity Fund, will that impact my organization's eligibility for this grant in any way?
I'll take that one. No. Eligibility for other granting programs will in no way impact your eligibility for the Community Accelerator Grant, nor will eligibility for this grant in the past. We review eligibility each year.
Thanks, Ellen. Next question is, why is this grant no longer available to organizations with operating budgets above $1 million?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I'll take this one. This is Michael again. So we made this decision really in recognition of the fact of the impact that we see small and medium-sized nonprofit arts organizations having in the community. And, demand for this program has continued to grow year over year. And that showcases how important and how vibrant that this community is. But we also understand that this program and the need for funding among small budget organizations has also grown over time. Like since we first started the Community Accelerator Grant, the proportion of grantees with budgets under $1 million has grown from 81 all the way to 85% of the total grantee pool, with most of those organizations falling with budgets under 100,000. So we're hoping that by focusing the eligibility pool in this way, we can make more meaningful and more impactful awards.
Thanks, Michael. The next question is, will the Community Accelerator Grant be offered again in 2027?
I'll take this one. We applaud the leadership of Allen Family Philanthropies in offering this funding opportunity for a 4th year. This grant program is offered on an annual basis and as of now has been renewed for 2026 only. So to stay up to date about this grant program and future grant programs through ArtsFund, please stay tuned to our website and our ArtsFund statewide email list. If you aren't on that email list, you can sign up on the Accelerator page of our website, and that will let you know every time we have a grant opportunity coming open.
Thanks, Ellen. Next question is, can you speak more to what you mean by centering Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ plus communities, and people with disabilities?
Sure, Katie, this is Michael. Our hope and really our intention is to reach organizations that prioritize these populations in their work and that are actively trying to uplift these communities. And that's whether it's through their internal work or their external programming. So for many arts and cultural organizations, I know it's easier to often kind of default to defining the populations you center through your programmatic output, but an organization whose members are of the population and they're well represented on staff and board and have decision-making power throughout the organization would also make a strong case for centering those populations. So ultimately, we're looking to you to define what centering means for your organization and to make an honest evaluation of, kind of who you are, who you serve, and exactly what you do.
Thanks, Michael. Next question is, if my organization doesn't center any of these communities, can we still apply for this program?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The program is intended to support the entire arts and culture sector across every county in Washington state.
Thank you. Next question is that there's a wide range of award amounts. How do you determine who gets how much within those ranges?
This is Ellen. So applications will be scored based on a set of criteria determined by our community advisory panel, which is a geographically and demographically diverse group of cultural and philanthropic leaders from across Washington. And they are working to ensure that decision-making is as close to impacted communities as possible. So the evaluation criteria are designed to prioritize funding for organizations that center Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, LGBTQ plus people, people with disabilities, and rural populations, as we've been discussing. So final awards will be based on those criteria, and they will range from $2,500 to $25,000. And just to note that all applicants will be automatically considered for the maximum amount of $25,000. There's no need to request an amount in the application. That's automatic for everybody.
Thanks, Ellen. A follow-up question is, how are you defining rural for the purposes of this grant?
Yeah, this is Michael. So we will be determining rurality by the population density of the county in which your organization is located.
Great, thank you. So next question is, what if I feel uncomfortable collecting and reporting on my organization's demographic data? Is that information required for my application?
Yeah, thanks for this question. We completely understand that demographic information is sensitive and the safety and well-being of your communities is front of mind for everybody. So I encourage all applicants to review the demographic data use statement, which is linked on our website and on the programs and demographics form in the application. And that's in the chat now as well. Thanks, Annika. If it makes sense for your organization, please feel free to share that with your staff and board when collecting data so they can fully consent to how their demographic information is being used and stored. The statement contains full details, but in essence, please know that ArtsFund will never share your demographic data without your consent. As to the second part of the question, if the information is required, you always have the option to respond to these questions with do not know or prefer not to answer. Your application will not be penalized for this, but it does mean that we will not be able to factor demographic representation into your award consideration.
Thank you, Ellen and Michael. I believe that's all the questions we have time for today. Thanks to everybody who's been submitting their questions in the Q&A function. And thanks again to Ellen and Michael for addressing those questions. If you have any more questions at any time, but especially once you've begun your application, please don't hesitate to reach out to our grant making team. And I know Annika's dropped that email address in the chat, but again, that's accelerator@artsfund.org, or by giving us a phone call at 206-788-3051. We'll be available at every step of this process. With that, I just wanted to remind everyone again that this webinar has been recorded, and we will make that recording available on our website as a resource for you all as soon as we're able. Another note is that when you do close out of this Zoom, you should see a brief feedback survey on today's webinar open up in your browser. This is a fully optional survey, but we do welcome any thoughts that you have on whether your time was well spent and how we may improve informational sessions such as this in the future. With that, I will hand it back over to Michael to close us out for this afternoon. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Katie. Thank you to Ellen, Celine, Katie, our ASL interpreters, everyone for joining us today. Thanks to Joe and Annika, who have been moderating the chat in the background. And thank you to all of you for spending your time to learn more about this program. So on behalf of ArtsFund, Allen Family Philanthropies, and everybody that supports this work, I just wanted to acknowledge that you are all making Washington a better place to live by creating and sustaining access to arts and culture. And that is so important. The Community Accelerator Grant is designed to further empower you to do this work. And if you meet these eligibility requirements, please, we hope that you apply. So with that, thank you all for being here. Take care and have a great day.